The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around the Kepler 442 system, but within the heavily shielded command centers of the Galactic Reconnaissance Council, tension filled every corner. Admiral Vexter's multiple eyes flickered across the holographic display showing the fourth planet of the distant system. For 73 standard cycles, that world had been sending out strange energy pulses that defied every known scientific explanation. The energy readings were unlike anything the Council had encountered in their 1,000-year history of galactic exploration. The pulses came in regular intervals, sometimes weak, sometimes strong, but always carrying an underlying pattern that suggested intelligence. Yet when their long-range scanners tried to penetrate deeper into the system, they hit an invisible wall of interference that scrambled all their equipment. Captain Zathara of the Zephyrian Empire had been the first to volunteer. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their incredible ability to survive in the harshest environments. They could breathe methane, withstand crushing pressure, and their thick, scaled skin protected them from radiation that would kill most other species instantly. If anyone could survive whatever dangers lurked in the Kepler system, it would be a Zephyrian. Zathara had taken her ship, the Stormdancer, into the system 3 months ago. Her first transmission came exactly as expected. The scanners showed a beautiful green and blue world with vast oceans and continents covered in what appeared to be forests and grasslands. Small settlements dotted the landscape, connected by primitive roads. Smoke rose from simple chimneys, and her instruments detected basic agriculture and what looked like early metal work in. Preliminary assessment complete, her voice had crackled through the quantum communicator. The planet appears inhabited by pre-industrial civilization. Population estimated at several million. No signs of advanced technology or space capability. Energy signatures appear to be natural phenomena, possibly related to unique mineral deposits in the planet's core. That was the last anyone heard from Captain Zathara. The Council waited for 3 weeks before sending their second scout. Commander Faltex of the Vortani Confederacy possessed abilities that made him nearly impossible to detect. His people could bend light around their bodies, becoming almost completely invisible to most forms of observation. They could also suppress their life signs to nearly zero, making them perfect for reconnaissance missions in hostile territory. Faltex approached the planet with extreme caution, using every stealth technique his people had developed over centuries of warfare. His ship, the Silent Wing, was designed to be undetectable by even the most advanced sensor arrays. He spent 2 full days observing the planet from orbit before sending his report, confirming previous observations. His whispered transmission had said, inhabitants appear to be bipedal mammalian species, technology level consistent with early steam age development. No orbital defenses detected. No energy weapons observed. Preparing for surface reconnaissance. The silence that followed lasted for months. By the time the Council decided to send their third scout, panic had begun to spread through their ranks. They chose crystalline operative designation Harmony of Zevenlights, a being composed entirely of living crystal that could phase through solid matter at will. The crystallines were perhaps the most scientifically advanced species in the galaxy. Their quantum consciousness allowing them to exist partially outside normal spacetime, Harmony took a completely different approach. Instead of observing from orbit, the crystalline scout immediately phased through the planet's surface, appearing in the depths of the crust itself. From there, it could observe the surface dwellers without any possibility of detection, while simultaneously analyzing the source of the mysterious energy readings. The crystalline's first report was more detailed than the others. Surface inhabitants confirmed as primitive. However, energy source location identified approximately 12 kilometers below primary population center. Massive crystalline formations detected. Unlike any natural mineral structures in galactic database, formations appear to be artificial. Preparing for closer investigation. 3 days later, Harmony of Seven Lights vanished, just like the others. As months passed, the pattern repeated itself with terrifying consistency. The Vorthok Hive sent their best swarm intelligence scout, capable of splitting into hundreds of smaller units for comprehensive reconnaissance, gone. The ethereal communes dispatched a pure energy being that existed only as organized light and thought, vanished. The machine collective contributed their most advanced artificial intelligence housed in an indestructible titanium shell, disappeared without a trace. Each scout sent back initial reports describing the same thing, a peaceful, primitive world inhabited by simple creatures who had barely discovered fire. Each scout confirmed that the mysterious energy readings seemed to originate from deep underground. Each scout prepared to investigate further, then each scout disappeared completely, as if they had never existed at all. The Council's deep space monitoring stations, positioned throughout the galaxy, detected no explosions, no weapon discharges, no signs of struggle or destruction. The quantum communicators simply went silent, their signals cut off mid-transmission in some cases. It was as if the scouts had simply stepped out of existence itself. After losing 17 of the galaxy's best reconnaissance specialists from 7 different species, each possessing unique advantages and capabilities that should have made them nearly impossible to capture or kill, the Galactic Council faced an unprecedented mystery. Whatever lurked in the Kepler 442 system was far more dangerous than anything they had ever encountered. Despite appearing completely harmless from a distance, the emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 12 hours straight. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, telepathic waves, and electronic beeps. At the center of the debate sat the newest members of their alliance, the human delegation from a small blue planet called Earth. Ambassador Kreonax of the Zephyrian Empire slammed his scaled fist on the crystalline table. This is madness. We have lost our finest scouts, beings with abilities your species cannot even comprehend. What makes you think these ... humans can succeed where we have failed? The human ambassador, a calm woman named Ambassador Park, smiled politely. Perhaps that is exactly why we might succeed. We do not have your incredible abilities, so we must rely on something else entirely. Dr. Velthara, the Council's chief xenobiologist, pulled up holographic displays showing detailed scans of human physiology. Look at them, she said dismissively. No natural armor like the Zephyrians, no stealth capabilities like the Vortani. They cannot phase through matter like the crystallines. Their lifespans are pathetically short. They require oxygen to breathe and water to survive. By every measure, they are among the weakest species we have ever encountered. What Dr. Velthara did not understand was that weakness, from a human perspective, was simply another problem to solve. While other species had evolved natural advantages, humans had spent their entire evolutionary history compensating for their limitations through tools, teamwork, and an almost supernatural ability to expect the worst possible outcome in any situation. Captain Kim Day stood up in the human section of the chamber. He was not particularly impressive to look at. Average height, brown hair, wearing a simple blue uniform that looked primitive compared to the advanced materials worn by other species. But when he spoke, something in his voice made the entire chamber fall silent. We volunteer, he said simply. The council erupted in protests. Representatives argued that sending humans would be tantamount to murder, that they would be throwing away lives for no purpose. But Captain Kim Day raised his hand for silence. We understand the risks, he continued, but we also understand something that you may not. Every species you have sent possessed incredible natural abilities. They went to that planet confident in their superiority. We have no such confidence. We assume everything will go wrong, and we prepare accordingly. His team stood up behind him. Park Jin was a stocky man with scars on his hands from years of combat training. He had spent 10 years fighting in Earth's most dangerous regions before becoming fascinated with alien biology. His approach to xenobiology was simple: assume every new species was trying to kill you until proven otherwise. Dr. Lee Yuna looked like a university professor, which she had been before joining the space program. She could speak 14 different human languages fluently and had spent the last 5 years learning to communicate with every alien species Earth had encountered. Her specialty was finding ways to talk to things that did not want to be talked to. Choi Minho was built like a fortress and carried himself like a man who had never met a problem that could not be solved with sufficient firepower. He had requested permission to bring enough explosives to level a small mountain, and when the council refused, he had simply requested more explosives. Lieutenant Han Solo was young but had already gained a reputation as a pilot who could fly anything, anywhere, under any conditions. She had once landed a damaged spacecraft in a hurricane while the landing gear was on fire. Her philosophy was simple: if something could fly, she could crash it safely. Dr. Nam Gi-won was the team's scientific expert, a quantum physicist who understood alien technology better than most of the aliens who had built it. She approached every new piece of technology with the assumption that it was designed to malfunction at the worst possible moment. Corporal Unite was so good at reconnaissance that his own teammates sometimes forgot he was in the room. He had earned his reputation by being completely invisible when he wanted to be, not through any special ability, but through careful observation and an understanding of how people see what they expect to see. The Council provided them with standard reconnaissance equipment, sensors, communicators, basic weapons, and a small scout ship. The equipment was the same that had been given to all the previous scouts. The Council expected the humans to use it in the same way and to suffer the same fate, but as the human team prepared for their mission, they did something none of the previous scouts had done. They assumed the equipment would fail. They brought backup equipment for their backup equipment. They created contingency plans for their contingency plans. They prepared for scenarios that the Council's military strategists considered impossible. Most importantly, they prepared for the possibility that everything they had been told about the planet was wrong. While other scouts had gone expecting to find a primitive world, the humans prepared for the possibility that they were walking into a trap designed by an intelligence far superior to their own. The Council watched their preparations with a mixture of confusion and amusement. These humans were clearly paranoid to an unhealthy degree, but as the team's ship departed for the Kepler 442 system, some of the older Council members began to wonder if perhaps paranoia was exactly what this mission required. The human ship drifted silently at the very edge of the Kepler 442 system, far beyond the range where any of the previous scouts had begun their investigations. Captain Kim Dae stared at the displays showing the distant fourth planet, a beautiful blue-green marble that looked perfectly peaceful from this distance. Remember, he told his team, every single scout who got close to that planet disappeared. 17 of the galaxy's best, each one convinced they knew what they were doing. Dr. Nam Juan was already working at her station, preparing the first wave of automated probes. Standard procedure would be to take our ship closer for better scans, she said. But standard procedure got everyone else killed or captured, so we do the opposite of standard, Park Jin said, checking his weapons for the 5th time that hour. His military training had taught him that overconfidence killed more soldiers than enemy fire. We assume that planet is the most dangerous place in the galaxy and work backwards from there. Lieutenant Han Solo launched the first probe from maximum safe distance. It was a simple device, barely more sophisticated than a camera with a radio transmitter. If something destroyed it, they would lose almost nothing. If something tried to capture it, they would learn valuable information about their enemy's capabilities. The probe approached the planet slowly, transmitting everything it observed back to the human ship. For the first few hours, its reports matched exactly what all the previous scouts had described. Rolling green hills dotted with small farming communities, primitive roads connecting simple villages, smoke rising from basic chimneys. No signs of advanced technology anywhere. But Corporal Yoon Tae noticed something odd. The smoke patterns, he said, pointing to the probe's video feed. Look at how the smoke rises from those chimneys. Dr. Lee Yuna studied the images carefully. She had spent years learning to notice details that others missed. The wind should be blowing that smoke in a different direction, she realized. According to our atmospheric readings, the wind down there is coming from the east, but the smoke is blowing west. Maybe the atmospheric readings are wrong, Choi Minho suggested, though he kept his hand near his weapon controls. Or maybe what we're seeing isn't real, Kim Dae said grimly. They launched more probes, each one equipped with different types of sensors. The second probe carried equipment designed to detect energy signatures. The third probe could measure gravitational anomalies. The fourth probe was built to spot anything that might be artificially generated. The results were disturbing. The energy probe detected massive power sources buried deep underground, far more advanced than anything a primitive civilization should possess. The gravitational probe found areas where gravity itself seemed to be artificially controlled, creating pockets of space where the normal laws of physics did not apply. The fourth probe discovered that many of the buildings in the primitive villages were not solid matter at all, but sophisticated projections. It's all fake, Dr. Nam Guan whispered, staring at the data in disbelief. The entire surface of the planet is an elaborate illusion, but the most shocking discovery came from their fifth probe, which was designed to detect temporal distortions. As it passed over one of the primitive villages, its sensors went wild. The probe detected 17 distinct temporal anomalies, each one containing what appeared to be a living consciousness held in some form of time-suspended state. Those are our missing scouts, Kim Dae realized. They're not dead, they're being preserved somehow. The beings who lived on Kepler 442b were not the primitive farmers they appeared to be. They were scientists and researchers who had developed technology so advanced that it operated on principles completely unknown to the Galactic Council. Instead of building obvious cities and starships like other advanced civilizations, they had learned to manipulate the very fabric of space and time itself. Their villages were actually sophisticated research facilities, hidden in pocket dimensions that existed parallel to normal space. Their primitive lifestyle was a carefully maintained disguise, designed to make visitors underestimate them. When scouts arrived, expecting to find a backward world, they found exactly what they expected to see, until it was too late. The aliens, who called themselves something that roughly translated to the observers, had been studying galactic civilization for thousands of years. They collected specimens from every species that visited their world, not out of cruelty, but out of scientific curiosity. Each captured scout was placed in temporal stasis, their consciousness preserved perfectly while the observers studied their biology, psychology, and culture. "They're not evil," Dr. Lee Yuna said as she analyzed the probe data. "They're researchers, just like us, but they see other species the same way we might see laboratory animals." The humans realized they were facing an intelligence that was not only more advanced than anything in the known galaxy, but one that had been successfully deceiving every visitor for decades. The observers had perfected the art of appearing harmless, while being incredibly dangerous. "Now we know what happened to the others," Park Jin said, checking his equipment again. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Kim Dae studied the probe readings, his mind racing through possibilities. The other scouts had failed because they had approached the planet with confidence in their own abilities. They had seen what they expected to see and walked straight into a trap. The humans, however, had assumed from the beginning that everything was a lie. Captain Kim Dae sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed the true nature of the planet. Below, his team had spent 3 days analyzing the probe data, and their conclusions were both fascinating and terrifying. The observers were more advanced than any species the Galactic Council had ever encountered, but they had one weakness: they had never met anyone quite like humans before. "They're expecting us to do what everyone else did," Kim Dae said to his team. "Approach with confidence, land on the surface, and walk straight into their trap. So we're going to do something completely different." Dr. Nom Guan had been working non-stop to understand the aliens' technology. "Their reality distortions work by manipulating what visitors expect to see," she explained. "They read the approaching scout's mind, determine what that person believes they should find, and then create an illusion that matches those expectations perfectly. But humans are different," Dr. Lee Yuna added. "We don't trust our own expectations. We assume we're wrong about everything." Park Jin loaded another clip into his weapon and grinned. "Paranoia is finally useful for something other than keeping me awake at night." The human plan was unlike anything any previous scout had attempted. Instead of trying to sneak onto the planet or approach peacefully, they decided to make their presence known in the most dramatic way possible. Choi Minho had been waiting for this moment since they left Earth. "Light it up," Kim Dae ordered. Choi Minho pressed a series of buttons, and the space around the planet suddenly filled with explosions. He had launched every piece of explosive ordnance the ship carried, not at the planet itself, but at the empty space where their probes had detected the strongest reality distortions. The massive detonations sent shockwaves rippling through the aliens' carefully constructed illusions. For the first time in thousands of years, the observers' perfect disguise flickered and failed. The primitive villages on the planet's surface wavered like mirages, revealing glimpses of the sophisticated research facilities hidden beneath. The aliens' space-time manipulations, designed to work in perfect silence and secrecy, were disrupted by the crude but effective human tactic of blowing things up until something interesting happened. "Did that get their attention, Lieutenant?" Honsola asked, watching the sensor readings spike wildly. "Oh, we definitely have their attention now," Corporal Yunte said. He had been monitoring alien communications frequencies and was picking up what sounded like very confused conversations in a language no human had ever heard before. The observers tried to regain control of the situation by focusing their reality technology directly on the human ship. They attempted to make the humans see what they expected to see, to trap them in the same kind of illusion that had captured all the previous scouts. But something unprecedented happened. The technology simply did not work on human minds the way it was supposed to, where other species had clear, logical thought patterns that could be predicted and manipulated. Human consciousness was a chaotic mess of contradictory emotions, irrational fears, and stubborn refusal to accept obvious facts. The observer's equipment, designed to work with rational minds, could not get a solid grip on the humans' constantly shifting mental states. "They're trying something," Dr. Nam Jawan reported, watching her instruments detect massive energy fields focused on their ship. "But whatever it is, it's not working." Park Jin felt a strange tingling sensation in his head, as if someone was trying to whisper suggestions to him. But years of combat training had taught him to ignore distractions and focus on the mission. "I think they're trying to mess with our minds," he said. "But honestly, my mind was already pretty messed up to begin with." The aliens increased their efforts, pouring more energy into their reality distortion technology. But human skepticism proved to be an almost perfect defense. When the technology tried to make them see a peaceful farming village, the humans assumed it was a trap. When it tried to make them feel calm and relaxed, they became more suspicious. When it tried to convince them they were safe, they prepared for an attack. Dr. Lee Yuna realized what was happening. They can't control us because we don't trust anything we see, hear, or feel. We assume everything is a lie, so their lies have no power over us. While the observers struggled to understand why their technology was failing, Corporal Yuntae did what he did best. He disappeared. Using the chaos created by Choi Minho's explosions as cover, he launched himself toward the planet in a small, undetectable pod. His mission was not to fight the aliens, but to find their real facilities and gather intelligence. The observers were so focused on trying to control the main human ship that they failed to notice one small human slipping through their defenses. Yuntae landed near what appeared to be a farming village but used his training to see through the illusion. He found the hidden entrance to the real research facility beneath. Meanwhile, Dr. Nom Gyuan had figured out how to communicate with the aliens. She began broadcasting mathematical equations, prime numbers, geometric principles, and quantum mechanics formulas that would be recognizable to any advanced scientific civilization. Mathematics was universal, she reasoned, and could not be distorted by illusions or reality manipulation. The response came within minutes. Complex mathematical equations appeared on the human ship's communication systems, followed by what could only be a question. The observers wanted to know how the humans had resisted their technology, and more importantly, they wanted to know what the humans wanted. The mathematical conversation between Dr. Nam Juan and the observers continued for 6 hours. What started as simple equations gradually evolved into complex discussions about physics, chemistry, and the nature of consciousness itself. But it was Corporal Yuntae's report from inside their hidden facility that changed everything. "Captain," his voice crackled through the communicator, "you need to see this. I'm transmitting video now." The images that appeared on their screens showed something none of them had expected. The captured scouts were not being tortured or dissected. They were floating peacefully in what appeared to be advanced medical chambers, their bodies perfectly preserved, but their minds somehow active and aware. Around them, the observers moved like living shadows, their true forms barely visible even through the ship's advanced sensors. But more shocking than the fate of the scouts was what Yuntae found in the deeper levels of the facility. Massive war machines, weapons that could destroy entire planets, and defensive systems that made the Galactic Council's most advanced technology look like stone tools. This was not the equipment of peaceful researchers. This was preparation for a war. Captain Kim Dae made a decision that would have terrified any other species in the galaxy. Instead of trying to negotiate diplomatically or retreat to safety, he chose the most human approach possible, complete honesty backed by overwhelming threat. "Attention observers," he broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Kim Dae of the human vessel. We know you have our people. We know you've been lying about who you are. We know you have enough weapons down there to blow up half the galaxy. Here's what's going to happen next." The alien response came immediately, not in mathematics this time, but in perfect human language. "Human vessel, you do not understand the situation. Withdraw immediately or face the same fate as your predecessors." "Actually," Kim Dae replied calmly, "we understand the situation perfectly. You're scientists studying other species, but you're also preparing for something big, something that scares you enough to build weapons that could destroy star systems. So here's our offer: release our people. Tell us what you're really afraid of, and maybe we can help each other. Or we make this everyone's problem." To emphasize his point, Choi Minho launched another volley of explosives, this time targeting the planet's defensive systems that Yuntae had identified. The massive detonations lit up the space around the planet like fireworks, and several of the observers' hidden installations flickered back into visibility as their cloaking systems overloaded. Dr. Lee Yuna was monitoring alien communications and detected something interesting. "They're arguing among themselves," she reported. Some want to destroy us, others want to study us, and a few seem to think we might actually be useful. The breakthrough came when Dr. Nam Juan received a direct transmission from what appeared to be the Observer's leader. The message was simple but profound. Your species thinks differently than others. How do you prepare for threats you cannot understand? Park Jin laughed out loud. They're asking us for advice on paranoia, we wrote. The book on expecting the worst. What followed was the strangest negotiation in galactic history. The observers revealed that they had been monitoring the galaxy for thousands of years, not just out of scientific curiosity, but because they were watching for signs of an ancient enemy, something they called the Devourers, machines created by a long-dead civilization that had been systematically consuming entire star systems for millennia. The Devourers were not just destroyers, they were learners. Each civilization they consumed made them smarter, more adaptable, more dangerous. They had been working their way across the galaxy for so long that most species had forgotten they existed, dismissing them as myths or legends. But the observers remembered they had been the first species the Devourers encountered, and the only ones to escape. For thousands of years they had been preparing for the machine's return, studying other species to understand how different forms of intelligence might resist the Devourers' methods. Every species we captured taught us something new, the observer leader explained through their communication system. But your species is different. You assume everything will go wrong, you prepare for failures that have not happened yet. You expect betrayal even from allies. This may be exactly what we need to fight an enemy that learns from every victory. The humans found themselves in the bizarre position of being recruited as military advisors by aliens whose technology was centuries ahead of their own, but their value was not in what they knew, it was in how they thought. Captain Kim Dae looked around at his team and realized they had stumbled into something much bigger than a rescue mission. So let me get this straight, he said. You want us to help you fight ancient robot destroyers by teaching you how to be paranoid? Essentially, yes, came the alien response. The negotiation that followed established humanity as the galaxy's specialists in worst-case scenario planning. The captured scouts were released with full medical treatment and apologies. The observers agreed to share some of their advanced technology with the Galactic Council, but only under human supervision to ensure it would not be misused. Most importantly, they established a new alliance specifically designed to prepare for threats that nobody wanted to believe were real. Captain Kim Dae's final report to Earth was characteristically brief. Mission accomplished. We found the missing scouts, made contact with a new species, and apparently volunteered humanity to help save the galaxy. Just another day in the cosmos.